light, and hopefully this will work better this time, and show you the faculty view. This lists all of the courses that Clark Light has been assigned as a faculty member by term. So the first one listed is the most current, the 2021 fall, and then scrolling down, you can look at all of the past offerings as well. If I click into a particular course, this is how I would find my course roster, or my section roster actually in this case. And this has my full listing of students, and we'll find UR Light that we've been working with, and that's where I don't cover it. You can see their pronouns, and this would also have the student's email there as well. You can email the entire course roster. The only caveat to that would be if you happen to have Acadian students in your course, they will not appear on this roster. They would only be on your Blackboard roster. So in that case, I would recommend using the Blackboard functionality to email from there. You can also export your course roster to a CSV file, which I don't believe we had available in the previous DataView. The only, again, caveat to that is currently that export does not include the student's pronouns. So you would just need to come back to this roster. The other functionality that is not in this roster at the moment, it's again, also a feature request that has been put in by several schools, is the rosters in DataView show accommodations, show a link to the accommodation letter if a student has one on file. We will be adding those into Starfish. The plan is starting in spring 2021, so that you would be able to find that information if you pull your roster from Starfish. Again, one more caveat, graduate students are not yet in Starfish. We are working on that, but for spring 2022, if you have graduate students, I would recommend that you check your DataView roster for accommodation letters. Your undergraduate student accommodation letters would show there as well, and you will still have access to the old DataView platform as well. So you'll have both in parallel, at least for the immediate future. One other thing that shows on the roster page are deadline dates, which are the drop, add, and withdraw with a W or withdraw with a grade. Deadline dates here. This is where you will provide grades for the course, both midterm grades if you have freshman students or student athletes for whom those are required. You can certainly input them for all students, but freshman students and student athletes definitely need those, and that the ability to add them will turn on when the timing is appropriate for that. So again, midterm and overall. Permissions will show if a student, any students have received a requisite waiver or faculty consent to take the course, or if they've otherwise petitioned to be in the course outside of the normal requirements. And then the wait list, again, if there were waitlisted students, this is where the waitlist would present and the students on the waitlist. The permissions in the waitlist are pretty much view only at this point. The process for adding those, I'm going to jump back to a slide, for resolving restrictions will be the same as it has been. So for permission to register, if that's a restriction that's added on the course that faculty consent is required, that would go through the department chair, as would if a course is reserved for a particular major or minor or a particular academic level, say junior standing or something like that, or prerequisite or co-requisite waivers. Those would all go through the department chair and be input directly into colleague. Forms are available for student use for course overloads or time conflicts. And then unique things would go to registrar at valpo.edu. So things like a course repeat error message if a student is taking a course for a third or more times, or a class with an ungraded lab. Some of those will still require registrar intervention. Click back to my slides to make sure I didn't miss. Oh, I missed a kind of important one. The review complete or advisor complete. So we'll go back into our student UR Light, who's requested a review of their plan. Notes. And we'll look at a future plan at their spring 2022 semester. So again, it defaults in this list view, and that's so that I can, as the advisor, I can look at each course that they've added to their plan, and I can either approve them all in one click by approving at the top of the column, or I can go course by course and approve an individual course that they have selected. I could also remove planned courses if I wanted to. If I said, ooh, absolutely not, they shouldn't be taking that, or that, or just wouldn't recommend it in this term, you could remove there as well. If I click on at this point, so I've gone through this, I reviewed and said, yep, course 115 is appropriate to take in the spring. Review complete will let the student know that this plan looks good. And that could be for one semester, or that could be after they've gone in and built out their entire 4 years and they've said, I'd like you to take a look at this. Does this make sense? Does this work? And you would click review complete. What that does, it lets the student know that you reviewed it and you've said okay, or you've made other notes. That's also where the compose notes feature would be really handy, and that would be the appropriate use for that if it's a note about their advising and their plan in general. You can also just email the student directly if it's just something that doesn't necessarily need to be recorded. So the notes will be retained in the student record, whereas if you just click the email link, that just takes you out to the email provider. It's not retained anywhere in self-service. Advisement complete is telling the student, we've had our advising meeting for the upcoming term and you may now register. And that's what the student needs for you as their advisor to click so that they can register for the upcoming term. So the review complete doesn't have a bearing on their ability to register, but advisement complete does. So that's really the essential one. But when you do review complete, the option that gives you, after it toggles, it marks it complete, but then it also asks if you'd like to archive the course plan. So if if as a freshman, let's say you've worked out an entire 4-year plan with the student, they can go in and change that anytime. So you could do it, this afternoon, and they could go in tonight and completely change it around. But if you've archived the plan, that saves a copy. So you have that copy based on that conversation that you can refer back to. So I would recommend doing that probably at least once a year, and especially anytime that you make a major change to the student's plan, or you've done significant planning to save that. I won't do it right now, but you can see and then I can click on the tab for the plan archives, and I can look back at any previous plans that have been archived and could look there. And I realize we're getting close on time. I'm going to show one other thing. And then I'll open up for questions. The transfer summary is another one that will be really helpful. And it won't be so much for the student because they don't have transfer courses. But if I were in a student record that did have transfer courses, this view will show the course that came in, the course and title that came in from another institution, and what it transferred in to at Valpo and how many credits they've received. So this will give you one summary. It's summarized by transferring institution. So if they are bringing in courses from multiple institutions, it would show there. This is just pulling in the high school, so that won't really show, but that's what would be there. And if it's a student who's already begun, those transfer courses would also be reflected then on their My Progress. So you'd be able to both see a summary of everything that transferred in, as well as see those reflected in their degree audit and their program evaluation. So I'll stop there and then open up for questions, anything that maybe hasn't been able to be covered in the chat, or if you have any other general questions. I forgot to mention, I didn't introduce myself at the beginning, but my name's on there. But I also wanted to mention that this is been the work of a whole team of people from multiple offices. So I'll put up my slide really quick with the working group that for some reason isn't showing my whole list. Scroll down. So this is the team of folks from the provost's office, the registrar's office, IT, each of the colleges, Christ College included, the graduate school, who've been working on putting this together for meeting weekly and sometimes even twice a week for several months. And for some folks, it's been multiple years of getting ready to roll out self-service. So I always say I just drew the short straw as the one to present, but the credit for all of this work has been a whole team effort. Thank you very much. I realize we're at 5 o'clock and certainly understand if anyone needs to leave, but also happy to stay on and take any questions as well.
And that link will remain open for anybody who wants to continue to look around and play in that test account. And Melanie, maybe you want to give the timeline about what we're talking about as far as the advising openings.
Sure. So the catalog, from a student perspective, they will be able to start planning during the advising period, which will open October 18th, right after fall break. The schedule of courses will be available sometime next week, most likely. I think October 4th is the target date, but we'll certainly give the registrar's team a little grace on that. They're building as quickly as they can and have changes still coming in. At that point, faculty and advisors would be able to log in, take a look at that schedule, confirm that everything looks as they expected and as they planned. At that point, as an advisor, you would be able to even go in and start adding things to the student's plan if you wanted to do that, but you can certainly log into the system and look at that. And then, so the advising period will be October 18th through November 4th. Graduate students will be able to begin registering on November 4th. I may have said October 4th, November 4th. And then undergraduate students will begin November 8th. To be able to register. They will still have a registration window like we've had in the past, and that will appear on their student planning screen. So when they go in to select classes, it will show at the top of their screen when their advising window opens. So they'll have that right in front of them, and we'll be able to register after that. Another kind of perk that we had heard anecdotally that sometimes students would say that they needed to miss class because it was when their registration window was, and they needed to be able to do that. With this, they'll be able to add courses to their cart, so to speak, build their whole plan, choose their sections and everything. And then when their window opens, just pull out their phone, click register and be done. Unless the only exception would be if something's full or they don't meet a requirement, then they would need to retool a little bit. But for the most part, they should be able to have everything in their cart and only need to click checkout when it's there, when their window opens, when their advising period opens or registration period opens. And they will be registering spring and I think I mentioned earlier, but spring and summer registration will open at the same time this year. That's new this year. Summer usually has opened later in the spring. And one other thing to note, our freshman students have used the system already. They used it to register during Focus. So this is an opportunity. Our freshmen might be able to teach the upperclassmen a couple of things, but they should, that population at least will be familiar with the system and have used it already. So that might ease a little of their stress that they're not using this for the first time. And for student resources, we're not planning formal training sessions for students. What we saw as we trained the orientation assistants and then used it with the Focus students over the summer was they picked it up quite easily. It's a much more intuitive system than what we've had previously. We will have videos and step-by-step instructions available. We're planning to have to do tabling in the union the week that registration opens. So we'll just have someone there and available if students have questions. The help desk staff will all be trained in how to use the system. And we now have help desk representatives, both in the Clear in the basement where we always have, and also at the welcome desk in Kretzmann. And then we are thinking to have potentially some kind of open lab-ish sessions in the lobby of Kretzmann right there next to the welcome desk. There are several terminals. And so we'll offer that to students who would like a little bit more support or help as they're registering, even beyond what they might get from their advisor. So the welcome desk, help desk staff will kind of support that, but then they'll have the registrar's office around the corner and IT downstairs if they run into questions that they're not comfortable handling. Again, thank you all. That's all of the formal content that I have, but happy again I'll stay on for a little bit if there are any questions that you didn't want to ask in the group. And we'll
Thank you,
have
ma'am.
recordings and videos and step-by-step directions available for faculty and advisors as well. We're getting those materials finalized.